I'm going to introduce the first guest speaker today. It's Carlos Barakis, Port Manatee Executive Director, has nearly a quarter century of distinguished Florida port leadership. He is globally renowned for his visionary achievements in all facets of seaport business development and operations, including containerized bulk and break bulk cargoes, as well as cruise and ferry industry prominence. Prior to taking the helm of Port Manatee in January 2012, he served 22 years as Director of Business Development of Port Everglades, responsible for $100 million in annual port revenue. Mr. Barakis is serving a 4-year term on the Florida District Export Council, to which he was appointed by U.S. Secretary of Commerce, is on the board of directors of the Manatee Chamber, Manatee Economic Development Council, and the Gulf Coast Latin Chamber of Commerce. He is fluent in 4 languages, English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, and holds a master's in business administration degree from Fairleigh Dickinson University of Madison, New Jersey. Mr. Barakis, please come to the podium.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for being here, especially today. I really appreciate, I think Rick Piccolo's is also, the enthusiasm you're showing for the ports. Certainly, I think it's reflective of the benefits that the ports, airports, seaports bring to the community. And this is really what I'm here to talk about. It's not just about the ports, but the impact the ports bring, the jobs the ports bring, on a daily basis, and how we work together to expand the reach of the ports to essentially create economic prosperity for the community. I often say that I don't think people care how big a port it is as long as we create a lot of jobs. I don't think anybody cares how high we can stack containers or how deep the draft is on the ports as long as we can attract jobs. And I think one of our main responsibilities is to do just that. Here we do that in a kind of a different format, governmental format, than is done at many other ports. We have a port authority that also, for the same price as the county commission, do the job of being port commissioners. However, they do that in a different environment than with the county because the port, the seaport, is self-supporting. We don't receive any ad valorem taxes to support the port. So it's a true economic engine, not just taking money from one pocket and putting it in the other. The port's been around not very long at all. It's one of the newer ports in Florida, but interestingly enough, because of its strategic location at the mouth of Tampa Bay, it will be probably the last port built in Florida. With such a, let's say, distinguished title, we serve not just Manatee County, not just Hillsborough, but all counties south of us. You could say all the way down to Collier County. Essentially, all those ports, because of many, many different issues, all those counties will never be able to have a port, so we promote the port to those communities also. As you know, a lot of these faces are familiar because they are also your county commission. However, on the 3rd Thursday of every month, they put on their port hat. And there's a fantastic opportunity for them to create jobs, again, without ad valorem. So really, at that time, we bring them to the port, and many of you who are here today come up. And interestingly enough, when they put on that port hat, it seems that they're all of one mind. Because essentially, I think for the last 5 years, and I'm starting my 6th year, I think out of all those meetings, say 30, probably 50, 60 meetings, all the votes have been 7-0 in favor of the motion. So again, they recognize that these programs where they get to set policy are beneficial for the community. They're beneficial for businesses. And we're here to do that day after day. Again, going back to what I said earlier, the port is, relatively new, 1965. Now, can anybody tell me, maybe Rick, who's my co-presenter, what this is? would look like?
I think that's Bob's backyard.
His is bigger, I think. His backyard is bigger. Well, I want to show here something that can happen and is starting to happen at Port Manatee. This humble-looking, let's say, dirt with a notch there for docking ships is for Lauderdale. Okay. About, let's say 70 years ago. So that can catch up with you, as you can tell. That's US 1 there. Okay? That's the port. Nothing around it. And fast forward, you get yourself a major cargo cruise port. And since we're the only port on the West Coast in terms of geographical location, that's what we're aiming to do, to really be an economic driver. And we have the land to do it. A lot of ports, as you know, the city comes around and builds the land around the port, hinging the port like these condos over here. So again, the ports are, of course, transit points, intermodal points, to bring in the commodities that you all buy today. And the ports act as a vital link to that. In fact, there was a book not too long ago, 98% of everything. 98% of everything is what waterborne cargo is to what you buy. Everything that you're purchasing, 98% of everything comes in by ship. That's quite an interesting statistic. Why? Because it's a global economy. You know, your products come from all over the world, and someone who was less informed once said, well, why do I need ports? I can buy everything I want at Walmart. You know, that shows that there is a part of the economy still, a part of the population that needs to be educated as to how things happen. So again, you can see everything you use on a daily basis is coming in through the ports. This port, Tampa Port, all the ports. Where are we coming from? We're coming from everywhere. We reach out on a daily basis, the marketing team, the whole port team. Marketing and sales are job one. We can move all the chairs around we want on the Titanic. If we have a Titanic, we're not going anywhere. So it's moving the port forward to realize economic benefit for the community. And so we travel to these countries. We have these countries coming in here in order to provide them with opportunities from which to distribute their products and commodities. And really, when those customers come to the port, we don't tell them we have water, we have land, help yourself. We're in the global supply chain solutions business. And that means when we identify a customer that's beneficial to the port and the county, we will help them from origin to destination to succeed on their project. It's really unique. I mean, one where the county, of course, the state of Florida, the county and the port were critical, and their senior representative here is right in this room, was Air Products. Air Products wouldn't be here for a number of reasons, among them if they hadn't had a deep water port from which to ship. And Karen Stewart, who's also here, was integral in that, working with the customer, the prospective customer, and Air Products, and many other, of course, executives at the county. But the port, the county, we did that mutual cooperation to make sure that Air Products, the largest probably manufacturer, exporter in Manatee County, is here. And the port, of course, was one of the key drivers to make that happen. The impact, you can see, I'll let you read it, but it's significant. And every time we add a business, we grow exponentially because a ship or an airplane, for example, do not come in with one passenger per plane. They either fill the plane up or they fill the ship up, or they're not coming. As a result, you go from 0 to 100 in that business overnight. Some key numbers. Again, numbers don't mean a lot if we're not creating economic prosperity for the community. Of course, because we're not in the tax revenue business, we do keep a very good financial rating because, of course, that helps us with the debt. We invest essentially in projects that have a good revenue, but it's more important to have good jobs than the port to make a lot of money that we're going to just put in the bank above what our targets are. If we make 5, 10, 20%, we're happy. We don't need to make a large amount of percentage in revenue if it means that we're going to have fewer jobs. Master plan essentially is telling us, move forward. You have the only seaport on the west coast of Florida that has an opportunity to expand dramatically. As such, we have opportunities in the future with Cuba, Central America, the Caribbean. I mean, globally, we can be everywhere. There's not a port in the world that you can't reach from Port Manatee. Revenue, again, is on the rise. We do want to make sure the port is self-sufficient. What's been happening lately? Well, thanks maybe to $2 a gallon gas, although it's going up, Port Manatee has become overnight, like the example I was giving you on the airplane only carrying one passenger or the container ship only carrying one container. We went from no fuel distribution, gasoline, diesel, and so on, to having 3,200 tanker trucks a month, 6,000 in total, because they have to go in and out, millions and millions of gallons, supplying all of the West Coast and Central Florida. And during the last hurricane, Port Everglades, Port of Miami, Port of Palm Beach were shut down. They are also importing ports for fuel. So guess what Manatee County and the Port Manatee did? The Transmontane fuel people shipped tankers of fuel to keep the economy moving all the way to Broward County. So you can see the intricate impact that ports can have. I mean, literally, with many ports, if you're shut down because of a hurricane event, 3 or 4 hours later, you're getting calls from the fuel companies and the gas stations. Where's the fuel? Where is the fuel? And so what happened there many years ago was that we got the fuel to the gas station, but of course the new laws say now you have to power the gas station to make sure they can get the fuel out. So again, it's an example of how intricate the economies are. If we weren't able to supply you with the fuel, we would have a real problem before, during, and after the hurricane. We're expanding in all of our businesses, some more, some less, but we're moving forward steadily, going forward, attracting new businesses. Again, this is the one you know, and that Air Products in their facility have expanded, are growing. These are the, and Mark's right here, so I can't explain this. I'm not going to try to tell you what this is, but it's a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. Mark won't tell me how much it is because it is a secret. But it is a huge export. There were 3 of them. 1 was an export. So I think without knowing the number yet, and we'll find out later because it is a number that is publicly available somewhere in Washington, we were the fastest growing export port in Florida as a result of this, one of these businesses. And as they do more, and each export dollar means a lot of export-related jobs in addition to the manufacturing jobs. Of course, today's world, especially at airports, security is really critical. Nobody gets in and out of the port without knowing who they are. In fact, in contrast to airports, they can't even come in the gate. We won't even let them park. We have what's called the Transportation Workers Identification Card, the TWIC card, and that card allows you entry with certain additional conditions into ports. We have the most secure port, I think, in Florida. The reason is these cards that are called the TWIC cards can be validated with our equipment to confirm that it's you going into the port, not somebody else. As a result, we have federal agencies, we have USDA, we have U.S. Customs and Border Protection at the port. We have FDA. Every agency is represented because since we bring in also products from overseas, let's say risk doesn't come alone from the land side, it could come in from the water side. So we're protecting land and water. So we've expanded our capability in security. We trained security officers for ports globally at the port. David St. Pierre, Director of Security, does that extremely well. He gets asked to go over sometimes. We have more than 20 or 30 people. He'll fly wherever to train what we call terminal security officers or facility security officers that every port is required to do. So we're contributing positively even to maintaining the security, especially in today's environment, for ports all over the world. So we have that distinction, and our security department continues to invest, and we continue to invest to make sure we're fully automated, fully rated, and ready to respond to any emergency. This is another few pictures of what we recently did over in our facility. Now, infrastructure, that's a big part. It's a continuous effort to modernize the ports, and we just did this Southgate entrance, over $1 million, to expand the ability for ports to get in and out. Sorry, for trucks. We don't want a funnel effect. And if we go from 0 to 3,000 trucks in one business sector, those 3,000 trucks need to come in seamlessly and quickly, and that's one way that we have to invest. That $1 million essentially is the port's investment because essentially it's the port's responsibility to make sure that egress and ingress is unrestricted. But again, this berth to us is like the equivalent of runway length to Rick. You know, we're having a runway expansion or remodeling job here, berth, and then of course we have to be not only long, but we have to be deep, draft. Depth of ports is a critical component. It's equivalent to runway length. If you're not deep, the big planes can't take off, and the big ships can't come in. Critical, very expensive. But fortunately, David Sanford, who's here, is an expert in getting these dredging jobs done for very little money because they are extremely multi-million-dollar investment supports need to make, along with partnering with the Army Corps of Engineers. You have from the ship channel to the ports, you have all of the dredging of Tampa Bay. It's a huge task, and the Army Corps of Engineers and the ports are responsible for maintaining those drafts so those heavy ships can continue to come in. Each foot of, let's say, draft, if the ship has to come in light, each foot represents millions of dollars in losses. So obviously our interest in making sure those ships are coming in as deep as possible with as much cargo as possible. However, we also feel the port has a responsibility to think outside of the fence in terms of international trade. So a couple of years ago, we started what we call the International Trade Hub. And that is a facility, this is the building here, that can bring together, much like an incubator, all the businesses, foreign and domestic, that have an interest in expanding international trade, just for international trade. There are many hubs for IT, there are hubs for all sorts of interests, but this one is just for international trade. And these are the companies from Europe that have signed up to be part of the hub. However, the difficulty isn't that. The difficulty is that left to their own, let's say, initiative, these companies, because they're not U.S. companies, now they are, would have stayed in one place, about 3 miles from MIA. They wouldn't venture all the way, what I call, into North America. I really feel, and they feel it when they come, that they've left South America when they cross Alligator Alley somewhere around Charlotte, and they've entered into North America. And so we tell them, look, you can sell to South America all you want, but if you really want to market to the U.S. market, you have to come to Manatee. That's where the U.S. starts. And they see that. They see that when they come. We kind of say it half jokingly, half seriously, but they see that because meetings start on time. There are no rice and beans on the menu. And it's truly, truly, truly North America. And so as a result, the harder part is not really making them come to the U.S., it's getting them out of Miami. Essentially, if you ask anybody in Latin America or Europe where Manatee County is, even where Dade County is. Remember, Dade County changed from Miami-Dade to another Miami-Dade because nobody knew where Dade County was at one point. I mean, I lived in New York for a while, and Dade by itself, I knew Miami, but Dade. So Miami-Dade or the other city, Orlando. We could never spend the money that Disney and others have spent in Orlando to market the destination. As such, we are Orlando's port. It is truly something that then they link that Orlando and the port are linked. So they have a general idea that we are not in Mississippi, we are not in Georgia, we're in Florida. And even on my business card, to make sure that when I give somebody a business card and they see Manatee County or actually Palmetto on my business card, to help them, I've put in a 305 area code number. So now when they read the card 3 months from now, they'll remember whatever I said. At least they know that we are somewhere in Florida. So also, of course, these are some of the expansion plans we have. We have our own railroad too, so we can link with the Midwest through CSX and the East Coast to anywhere in those destinations. So it's very good for ports. Very few have them, direct rail links. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you could have a seat for a second.
Okay.
And then what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Mr. Rick Piccolo next, and then we'll have a question and answer for both of them after Rick speaks. So I'd like to introduce Rick. Rick Piccolo has over 44 years of experience in the aviation industry and has been president and chief executive officer of the Sarasota International Airport since 1995. He earned a BS degree in business administration from the State University of New York at Buffalo and held several airport positions. Mr. Piccolo has served as president of the Florida Airports Council and has achieved executive accreditation to the American Association of Airport Executives. He served as the 2007 chair of the Airports Council International, North America. From 2013 through 2015, he also served as chair on the board of directors of the Airport Council's International World. He currently serves on the Manatee Chamber Board of Directors. The Florida Department of Transportation selected Mr. Piccolo as the 2005 Aviation Professional of the Year. The Federal Aviation Administration also chose him as the 2005 Airport Manager of the Year, and he was Small Airport CEO of the Year for 2009 by Airport Revenue News. And with that, Rick, come on up.
Thank you, Ernie. It's a pleasure to be here. I think you'll find a lot of my remarks will echo just what Carlos said as far as economic development, impact, and how cheaply you get that benefit from both our organizations. But before I get into the story of the airport, and I'll tell you about its structure, I'll tell you about air service issues, capital needs, and be happy to answer any questions, talk about security as well. I always like to tell a story about a user at the airport to kind of personalize the airport a little bit. We had a couple that was coming in to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary, and they were coming from Minneapolis where it was very, very cold, so they came down to Sarasota Bradenton. Unfortunately, the wife had come the day after the husband. The husband came down, went to the hotel they had stayed at 20 years earlier, found a computer in there, sent his wife an email. But he didn't pay close attention. He left a letter out, and the email ended up going to a widow in Houston who was just coming back from her husband's funeral. So she went into her computer to see letters of condolences or emails of condolences, and she looked at the first email. She screamed. She fainted. Her son came running in. And this is what he found on the screen. To my loving wife. Subject, I've arrived. I know you're surprised to hear from me. They have computers here now, and they allow you to send emails to loved ones. I've just arrived and been checked in. I see that everything's been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. P.S. Sure is frickin' hot down here. Well, now we've got the crowd warmed up a little bit. Let's talk about the airport. First of all, what is the Airport Authority? It's an independent special district. It has a 6-member board of directors. They're appointed by the governor. They can serve a maximum of 2 4-year terms, 3 from Manatee County, 3 from Sarasota County, and I'm very happy to report that they all understand the entrepreneurial nature of the airport and what its mission is. We're kind of like a mini city. We have our own police department, our own fire department, our own public works. We do all the administrative functions in-house. We do all the personnel, HR, IT functions, purchasing, accounts payable, receivable, finance. Everything is done in-house. Our police department is certified officers from the state of Florida as well, and we are totally accredited, which the city of Sarasota and the city of Bradenton are still trying to achieve. So I'm very, very proud of our police department, and they're very well trained and they're very capable. And in this environment, they certainly have to be. We take care of over 250,000 square foot terminal, over 1,100 acres of grounds, 120 hangars, and a number of outbuildings as well. And that's all done with a total of 120 full-time employees. So I like to think that our employee workforce is tremendously efficient when we take care of all those things in-house. Now, very much like Port Manatee, we have no taxing power, so you're never going to find the airport on your ad valorem tax bills. We're very similar to an enterprise fund with one, I think, very distinctive difference. That is, if you look at an enterprise fund like the water department, they charge you a fee for your services and for the water you use. But in the morning, you really don't have a lot of choices. You either use their water or you bottle it and buy it anyway. But in the case of the airport, you have a lot of choices. You can fly out of SRQ, or you can fly out of Tampa, you can fly out of Fort Myers, you can fly out of Orlando, you can fly out of St. Pete, you can fly out of Punta Gorda. And if you drive by our doorstep, we have no way to reach into your pocket and say that we're a benefit to the community and you should be supporting us anyway. Now, the only revenues we get out of the state and federal government are revenues from trust funds for capital projects. Those trust funds come from airline ticket taxes and from aviation fuel taxes. They go into a trust fund. We compete with airports across the state and across the country for those trust funds. And the airport must match some of those funds with our internal revenues. So our operational budget of about $18 million a year is totally paid through our business operations, and a percentage of our capital program, we run about $10 million worth of capital construction a year, is also paid from our airport revenues. Now, the aviation impact on the economy, even though a small airport like SRQ, a study was done in 2012 by the Florida Department of Transportation of all 20 commercial service airports in Florida. SRQ has a $966 million annual economic impact on the community. So when you combine it with the port, you're looking at over $3 billion a year worth of economic impact on the community. We generate over 11,000 jobs. I'm trying to remember the number of the port was even higher. I think it was around 24,000, wasn't it, Carlos? So you're looking at over 35,000 jobs, $3 billion worth of economic activity. And what does it cost you as a taxpayer? Zero. Zero. Now, you name me another government operation that gives you $3 billion worth of value without taking $5 billion out of your pocket to do it with. And I think when you look at ports, that is the key component of ports, that they generate economic activity and they support themselves from business activities, the same as most people in this audience who run private businesses. When our revenues go down, we have to find ways to cut expenses or develop new revenues, the same as you do. So I think you'll find both the port and the airport are the closest thing to private industry and a total different mindset than what you find in government, because it's necessary so that we can function. Now, the airport from a financial standpoint is in excellent shape. We have $31 million in reserves. We have over $200 million of fixed assets. We have no debt. We retired our debt in August of 2014 when the new terminal was built in the late 80s. It was a $70 million construction project financed through revenue bonds. With interest, the cost was $150 million. We paid off that debt. We are one of the few airports in this country that has absolutely no debt. Tampa has a debt of about $770 million right now. Now, granted, they have 19 million passengers versus our 1.2 million to help support that debt service, and it makes total logical sense for them. But for us, this means we are very, very financially secure and have very strong revenue reserves to weather any storm. We have signatory airline agreements with American, Delta, and JetBlue. Those go through 2018. We generated over $2 million worth of surplus revenue in 2016, and we'll be this year generating about $1.6 million of surplus revenue. All that money goes into those reserves that helps pay for all those capital programs. So you have an airport totally self-sufficient, generating $1 billion worth of economic impact, and having plenty of reserves and being in sound financial shape. Now, I know that a lot of you hear the reason that we don't have the level of air service because the airport costs too much. First of all, airport costs only make up about 5% of the cost for an airline. Their costs are in fuel, aircraft, and personnel. I talk to planning people with the airlines when we go to see network planning people. If they decide to serve the area, they then go talk to their properties people and go find out what it costs to operate there. They've already made the decision. They make the decision based upon the market, and we're in a very competitive marketplace. We have an advantage of our geography that we're in a beautiful area. This is paradise, and we all know it. So lots of people want to come down here, and that's great. But we're also surrounded, as I said earlier, by 5 other airports. I don't think there's another area of the country that has 6 commercial service airports within 100 miles of each other. So it's a very competitive area, and one where you have lots of choices as a consumer. So it's very beneficial to you as a consumer, but it makes it hard to try and attract more air service. Now, our charges, as you can see up here, our landing fee is 44% lower than Tampa's and 65% lower than Fort Myers. It's 54% lower than Tampa's on our square footage rental rate and 42% less than Fort Myers. So if airlines made their decision based upon what you charge, we'd have 19 million passengers and Tampa would have 1.2 million. It's all about the marketplace. I like to think of our airport as kind of a boutique airport. We're kind of Whole Foods. Tampa and Fort Myers and Orlando are Publix, and St. Pete and Punta Gorda are Save-A-Lot. But they all fit a certain niche and get their clients from that. And when we try to be a boutique airport, we're trying to offer you a product that is a boutique type product. And I don't think there's a prettier, cleaner, nicer, more convenient airport in this country. And I hope most of you will agree with that, so that when your business associates or your relatives come in, you can be proud of what you see there. We offer free Wi-Fi that's very, very robust. We have Flight Explorer screens. We were the first airport in the country to put up Flight Explorer screens that show you a radar picture of where your flight is. So if you're waiting for Aunt Margaret, you can see she's over Savannah, Georgia while you're waiting for her, and you can see exactly where she's at. We try to offer you a level of convenience and services unparalleled at any other airport. Now, we've made a lot of investments in the last 15 years without borrowing money. It was always pay as you go while we were paying down our debt. Runway extensions, taxiways, industrial parks to try and diversify our revenue streams. We've made a lot of investments in security since 9/11. We expanded our screening checkpoint from 3 lanes to 5 lanes because one of the things we want to offer is a level of convenience. It's the only advantage we can offer over very large airports. We put in a new communications emergency operations center. That was a $4 million investment for ours. A new access control system, and we have over 120 cameras throughout the terminal, throughout the airfield, at all the gates, in the parking lot. If you misbehave, we have 16 digital recorders going 24 hours a day. You'll be on YouTube the next day. So behave yourself when you're out at the airport. That investment also includes, last year we put a virtual fence around the parking lot so that anyone who walks into the parking lot in the middle of the night, it alarms at our emergency operations center, which is manned 24/7, and the standard protocol is to send a police officer out there. So if you're leaving on a very early flight, especially for our female customers at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're parking in long-term, your security is very high priority for us. And those cameras have infrared cameras as well, and they follow the person. So we take our security issues very, very seriously. We put a new inline baggage screening system in as well to screen the luggage. You may recall after 9/11 there were 3 machines out in the ticket lobby area. You could load a bag on about once every 30 seconds, so it could clear about 120 bags an hour. Those 3 machines gave us capacity for only 360 bags an hour, which isn't very high. We've put it in line behind the wall, so now when you bring your bag to the ticket counter, you act just like you did pre-9/11 and give it to the agent. It increases the efficiency by over 300%, so we now can clear 1,200 bags an hour, and that's important to you as a customer because your bag should arrive the same time you do. We've changed a lot of things since the incidents in the last year, San Bernardino, and then airports like Fort Lauderdale and Brussels and Istanbul. It's a big challenge for us. And you'll see here, it's a little hard to make it in this picture, but this gentleman here, one of our police officers, carrying a long gun. We've gone to a much bigger, more robust deployment of what we call a tactical officer with long guns at all the time because active shooters have become a phenomenon that we have to deal with. It's something that is much different than what we had to deal with before. We'd put bollards in and film on the windows so that if there was an explosive device, we could protect for that. So security continues to be a challenge and one that costs us a lot of money and one that we're continually trying to adjust to. Our public safety payroll is a little over $3 million a year at the airport. That comes out of our business revenue. It's probably the biggest strain on our airport and aviation today is the continuing increased cost of security. Then we did, in the last 4 years, a lot of terminal improvements. While the terminal wasn't looking too bad, it was over 25 years old, we started out with new restrooms, a terminal roof, and aquarium. We put in new chillers, LED lighting. 5 years ago, our electric bill was $1.1 million a year. Today, it's under $600,000. We did renovation of the ticketing area, baggage claim, and the concourse. And all those areas look fabulous now. They're very, very bright. And as I said, I think it's one of the prettiest terminals we have in the country. We've made a lot of off-airfield improvements, too, since I've come there. We have an industrial park. All these businesses are on our land: Finergy, Honeywell, Sunstate Trucking, Poston's Antiques, Rips Golf, University Self-Storage. We operate that as well. It brings us about $1.5 million a year of revenue that's not dependent on airline service. When I came in 1995, that was at about $200,000 a year. So we've done a lot to diversify our revenue stream there. We have 2 fixed base operators, general aviation facilities, Dolphin and Retrix, generating almost $1 million a year from them. We generate another $600,000 a year from our T-hangar development, where we built 120 T-hangars. The Retrix development was built in 2007. That was a private investment of $23 million. We made a bunch of terminal concession improvements in 2007 as well. The concessionaires invested over $4 million in the airport to make those improvements. We're finishing our U.S. Customs facility. It should be checked next week for its final inspection. It will clear 300 passengers peak hour. We are out there working very hard trying to find some European charters to come here. We think that is a very good market, one that has a lot of future potential here. Right now we get a lot of Canadian carriers, but we'd like to see us get something from across the pond as well. Construction's underway, as you've probably seen, on our new air traffic control tower. The tower will be 140 feet high, have a 10,000 square foot base building. The reason behind this is, again, economic development. Where the tower is today, it's 85 feet high, and on the side of the airport that it's on, if we wanted to build 100 acres in the infield that could be developed, it would block the tower's view of the runway, so we can't develop that. By moving this tower, which is a $27 million investment, we can have developed 100 acres in the infield, which are rare pieces of infield property at airports where it'll have direct airfield access. So this is more an economic development project than anything, but it also will put a very modern face on the airport's control tower. This is the reality of airline service. In 1983, you can see this list of 21 large jet operators, and all these were regional carriers that were truly regional carriers. They decided their routes, they decided what they charged for fees, for tickets and all that. Today, as you can see, there are no regional carriers, and there are only about 10 airlines left. The 4 largest airlines now control 85% of the market. Southwest took over AirTran, Delta bought Northwest, United bought Continental, and American and US Air recently merged. So you've gone from 8 large carriers to 4. It's really much more like an oligopoly now, and that's why since they control the market, they have a term called capacity discipline. So it's very hard, again, to get more service because they want to keep the capacity control where they are because they're making record profits. It's good and it's bad. It's bad because it makes it harder to get new service. It's good because the airlines are stable for the first time in a long, long time. Now, we offer very robust incentive programs. The airport offers to any new airline or any existing airline that wants to start a new route that they can operate at the airport for free for 2 years. You can't get any cheaper than free. So it is not based on what we charge. In addition, we offer anywhere from $50,000 to $400,000 of marketing support depending on what route they're flying, depending on how frequent it is and that type of thing. And we also work with both the Convention and Visitors Bureaus on additional marketing support. We work with both chambers. We work with the economic development community on promoting their service as well. And we've had some success. JetBlue seasonal service to Boston, Delta upgraded service to Atlanta, added LaGuardia. United has seasonal service to Newark, added a second flight to Chicago O'Hare. You have Air Canada, upgraded last year to year-round service at SRQ. They go daily in the winter, twice a week in the summer. WestJet was added last year also as a Canadian carrier. And recently in November, Elite Airways started service here, flying nonstop to Portland, Maine. So we have had some success, but it is a great challenge. The only thing we ask you to do is look at SRQ first. We realize there are times we cannot fit what you need. Again, I said we're like a boutique airport, so we don't offer all the services you need. But look at us first. A lot of times you will find the product we offer is very price competitive. Other times you'll find it's not, but I ask you to at least factor in the cost from the time you leave your door till the time you get back to your door, not from the time you lift off the runway till the time you touch down. So a lot of times when you look at that $50 or $75 difference in price, by the time you spend money on a tank of gas to get up there and back, and their parking's much more expensive than it is here, you've taken care of all that savings. It's gone, and now you have an hour-and-a-half drive ahead of you when you get back versus 15 minutes from your local airport. The other thing I would caution you about is I know that the biggest thing I hear is, well, I can fly nonstop out of Tampa, and I can't fly nonstop. I have to fly through a hub. First of all, you haven't saved any time because you're probably leaving somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours earlier than you would have left for the same time frame to get to SRQ. So you haven't saved any time because connection times are usually somewhere between an hour and a half. Secondly, there's just as great a chance or greater chance that you're going to run into a traffic problem somewhere along that route than you will trying to make that connection. Airlines on average today are completing 99% of their schedule on time when they go through hubs. So you haven't really saved anything. And if you miss your flight because there was a traffic incident, the airline will try to get you to your final destination, but you're not their priority problem because you missed the flight that they already contracted with you for. If you fly out of SRQ and should something go wrong at the hub, you're a priority because the airline has not fulfilled its contract. So we ask you to take a look and consider those things when you make your flying decision. With that, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here, and I look forward to answering questions.
We ask Carlos to come back up, and we have any questions for either Carlos or Rick. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Tom. I'd say, first of all, fly SRQ, certainly. And to get the word out is really important, especially in the conversations you have with your business associates, relatives, friends. I don't know how many times I hear people say, well, we don't have air service because it costs too much. So you have some of the statistics there. Those are the things that I hope you will get to your friends.
Well, thank you. It's a little different at the seaport, obviously because we're carrying, for the most part, for the time being, just cargo. However, I think that, really the port, as you've seen in the presentation, we feel a fiduciary responsibility to help the entire community. We feel we're here to give and help and support different entities that make the community the fabric that it is. So that's where we're coming from. Yeah, the question, I think we have to repeat the question, right, for METV, is that what's going on with the ports and also what's going on with the potential for Cuba trade and for international trade. Really, I think not much has changed yet. The ports, airport, seaport, we don't trade with Cuba. The customers trade with Cuba. We're a facility that transits or helps transit people to get to their destination. So we want to make sure American businesses, whether it's Cuba or Singapore, are there to be able to provide the service. We want to be service ready. We want to be Cuba ready, but we're also ready for the entire world. So it comes a matter of not being the narrow end of the funnel, because we didn't think of what we would need when the resumption of trade or let's say, easement of trade occurs.
The only reference I can give to Cuba is right now the U.S. government gave 100 slots out, and that's a very low amount. So I do not foresee at SRQ that being a market that will serve in the near future, because they're going to concentrate those flights at the bigger markets that were awarded. And with Tampa having a very robust Cuban community, they have a couple flights there, and I think that's where most of it will be. It doesn't mean that we're not ready. As I showed, we're doing a lot of expansion of our customs facility, trying to be ready for the future. So eventually I think Cuba and other destinations will be the possibility, and we, like Carlos, want to be ready and not have the impediment at our end, but any impediment will come from the other end.
The question is, will you ever see a cruise ship at Port Manatee? And I think the answer is yes, because we are cruise ship ready. However, it takes some effort and investment. But having, kind of worked on the playbook at Everglades and Miami, I know what it takes. It's very, 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 very likely because mostly of our geographical location. The port used to have cruises. After 9/11, they went away. But we're cruise ready within a few months, and it takes cruise lines about 12 to 18 months to set up destinations and itineraries, because they're selling you the cruise not for tomorrow, but 18 months out. So the short answer, and I'm sorry for the long discussion, but the answer is yes. The question is, have we been able to capitalize as a result of what was established before with the Panama Canal? No, no U.S. port, to my knowledge, has benefited yet. And I think the future is yet, obviously the future is still there. They will benefit in the future. As of this minute, there's been relatively few benefits of the Panama Canal. And so the Panama Canal is there. American ports are ready to handle it, but there's a lot of hubs in the Caribbean. And they're fighting to have that cargo sent through their hubs. So just because you build a longer runway or you build a bigger port doesn't mean the Panama Canal is going to help you. However, we're in a position to do that when the customers decide. And even for U.S. ports, they really have not yet had a significant impact as a result of the Panama Canal.
Any other questions? Carlos and Rick, thank you so much. On behalf of the family, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. So again, Rick and Carlos, we want to thank you for giving us this most important update on both ports. Very beneficial. For those of you, there are flyers available at the registration desk for exciting upcoming events at the chamber in the back. There's probably about 8 to 10 flyers back there for upcoming events. We really appreciate you participating, picking one of those up, especially if you haven't reserved your table at the annual dinner, February 2nd. Please do so. It's a great event. It's always fully packed and a lot of great auction items. A special thank you again to Kaiser University and Mosaic Company for their continued support, and to the staff at Lakewood Ranch Golf and Country Club for this fabulous lunch. And we'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Thanks for coming.